Hello viewers, welcome to another episode of Ebenezer. Coming to you all the way from up north, Ontario, Canada. Thank you for choosing to spend part of your time with us right here on this network. It's an honor to bring to you episodes each week and to know that you're teaming up with us as you listen to stories of our guests, as they map exceptions in their stories, Ebenezer moments in their lives. And together, we join them in thanking God, giving Him the glory for the work He's doing in their lives. And hopefully someday, we can meet some of you, our viewers. A friend is just a stranger, yet to be met. That you can also come and share your own stories, lay your stones of help, declare God's love and goodness right here on this network. Today, I'm looking at the first chapter of my book, Beneath the Cracks. The first chapter is titled, It's a Girl. Those were the words that met my dad as he walked into the hallway of the maternity ward at a hospital named Kenyatta National Hospital in Nairobi, Kenya. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Earlier that day, he had brought my mother to the maternity ward. That was the day they were expecting my arrival. So he took some time off that afternoon, went back to the hospital with a brand new blanket to meet the baby. As he approached the nurse's desk, in excitement, the nurse announced, "Congratulations, it's a girl." Well, at that time, those words felt a bit of a disappointment. You see, my parents already had 3 daughters, and my dad was really hoping for a baby boy. So somehow, he handed the blanket to the nurse. That is what my mom would narrate to me years later. As a teen, she says, he handed that blanket to the nurse, and the blanket made its way to my mom's bed. He just needed to gather himself up and put on a different face from the one maybe he was wearing to meet a baby boy. And together, with the new blanket, together they brought me home to join my 3 big sisters. Later on my 18th birthday, during a birthday celebration, the youth group from my church had come home to celebrate my 18th birthday, which also marked the day I was leaving to go to college, theological school, for a diploma in theology and embark on my ministry journey. On that day, as we were having our celebratory snacks and songs and stories, the mood, the atmosphere at that time was celebratory, but also goodbye. You're heading off. It was a residential school. My dad would ask to say something, to give a speech. And of course, he shared a speech, and that is the first time he said something about my name. And that's the first time he also acknowledged that he was expecting a baby boy, though he received a baby girl. And at the time, he had a dream. Before I was born, when my mom was expecting me, he had a dream that he would have, that the new baby would be a boy. And in that dream, either it was out of his admiration of this person, or in that dream it came with a name. But at that time, my dad already had a name for the baby boy. You see, there was this individual in history who is known for his activism against slave trade. He spoke against slave trade, and he even freed, when he could, some slaves. His name was William Wilberforce. My dad had read about him, and he admired that act. And Dad was going to name his son Wilberforce. Somehow he managed to find a girl's name that was for him close enough to a reminder of William Wilberforce. But there's something he said on that day, on my 18th birthday, in his speech. He said, little did I know that in my dream and desire to name you somebody who was someone I admired for his desire and his values of speaking up and acting against slavery and slave trade. He said, apparently, you are going to do that only in a different way. He said these words, if I knew at the time when you were born that God had placed his hand on you and that he would call you to full-time ministry, your life would have taken a different course. I would have focused on ensuring you stay in school and you get the best education to prepare for full-time ministry. Well, he didn't know, but still, God ensured that I got the education that I needed, the grounding that I needed to prepare me to get theological training for ministry. Reminds me of the book of 1 Samuel 1:28. We are looking at the life of young Samuel as we look at different stories and the theme of Ebenezer. 1 Samuel 1:28 reads, so now I give him to the Lord for his whole life. He will be given over to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord right there. Hannah was grateful that God had answered her prayer and given her a son, and he gave that son back to the Lord. Those words came to my mind when my dad said, if I knew, because I have 10 children, if I knew that the Lord had plans for you, had placed his finger on your life for ministry, I would have ensured that you get your best preparation because you are my tithe to the Lord. You are a gift. He gave me, and a gift I'd be happy to give back to him. We lived in the inner city, and life in inner city was challenging. It was difficult just to be a girl, living in an inner city with minimal parental supervision. Sometimes we had to develop some self-defense skills and social skills to just protect ourselves. One particular instance, there was this boy in school, a peer of us in school, who loved to bully girls and knock them on the head. A knock we called knocking with a knuckle. We called it ngoto, a double knock on the head, and just for the fun of it. So one day, I and my friends, we schemed how to treat him to his own medicine. So I made a scheme that on our way home, we get to our houses before he gets to his house. On our way home, we will walk behind him, and each one of us will give him a ngoto and then run into the house. There is a ditch you skip before you get to your house. And once you skip that ditch, one cannot chase you because you're within your turf. Your parents are in reach. So I go to my house, I gave him a ngoto and ran. My second friend go to her house, did the same and ran, but then he was on to us. He sensed, he turned around and he saw that the other two were still following. So he scared them away, and the mission fell apart. I say this to give an example of some of the ways that there was minimal supervision and minimal protection. It was by God's grace that some of us, as young girls, as young boys, went through life in the inner city and the challenges of that life. I had a conversation with a peer, a man. He grew up as a young boy in the same inner city, the same neighborhood, the same schools we attended, and embraced faith. And he too, eventually as young adult, stepped into full-time ministry. So we attended the same theological school. I will share with you that conversation that we had on one snowy, wintry Ontario day with snowflakes falling and covering the ground, so beautiful. As he talks about his story, growing up as a boy in the inner city of a capital city, the challenges and how he navigated life and eventually embraced faith, responded to calling to full-time ministry. I will see you on the other side of the conversation. Ebenezer. Welcome back, viewers, and thank you for hanging around. I told you that we are having a guest today, our second guest in the episode, and our guest is coming all the way from Kenya, an early childhood peer, also the same youth group, and finally, we ended up in the same college training for ministry. So our paths have been parallel. I described my life as a girl growing up in the inner city, in the estate. But that was a perspective of a girl. What's the perspective of a boy? What was it like in the city growing up as a boy? That is what our guest will tell us today. So, Pastor Fred, please tell us your name and just something unique about yourself.
I'm Fred Maina Kabukuru. I can call myself also a jack of all trades because I don't think there is anything that I've not worked on, from journalism to being a lecturer, teacher,
Wow.
as a construction worker. So, but my main calling is really reaching out to the community. And mostly to those under-resourced persons. That is my biggest area of ministry. As a young guy in Botella, where we grew up, at least the systems were still working. Council would clean the area. The police were there on spot when anything happened. But as the years rolled on, things started changing. Alcoholism became a part of daily thing in the estates. The drugs were rife, and then peer pressure then was for boys was too high, because as we would watch movies in the estates, by then TV, you could count TV in an estate, so it was far and wide, especially in our estate where we grew. We would use the social halls to enjoy the TV, which were very segmented times. And so as a boy, I really faced the choices were between going the right way or the wrong way. And it's true, even today, as I talk here, most of my peers are no longer alive because either they joined crime, alcohol, or any other vices that were not conducive. And so it was really tough time. And
that's interesting,
especially for boys.
That's interesting to note, because I was imagining as a girl, the set of challenges were different. I was just wondering what it was like. I grew up with my brothers, but we were growing up, we're not asking each other what's happening. So it's great to look back and see where the Lord has taken us from. Out of these experiences, is there one that stands out, an early experience that stands out to you right now?
The biggest one was first, I got disciplined in sporting, and it's crazy. I initially had a lot of issues with this team, but then I joined boxing as sports because my elder brother was doing it, and it helped really me cultivate discipline and do exercise. Part of what I have carried over for many days, especially the exercise routine. But at the same time, the choices were, if you are not careful, you would fall in through the cracks, either alcoholism, drugs, or crime. And very few of us really survived those, especially coming from the estate. And
by God's grace.
Part of what really helped was church. Actually, if church never happened, I don't know where we would be today.
You raise an important point. The grace of God was the church, us joining the church. Tell us something about that. When and how it happened at the moment that you embraced faith?
It was around September when I received this story from a friend of a friend who was attending the church then. And this friend said, don't you think we should go and hear what these guys are saying? They are talking about very nice things about what God is doing. And so coming Sunday, there was even a revival meeting that was happening. I was there on Sunday, and it was around September 24th. I was, I think, 13 going to 14. And I gave my life to Christ. And that is what has mapped out my life to up where I am. If that had not happened, I don't know what would have happened.
We thank God. You know, that's a very crucial age, 13 going to 14. You're just adolescent approaching teenage years, becoming a youth. It's like God caught you at the right time from our human perspective, but all time is right time. How has your faith journey been like? Just tell us something about how your faith journey has led you in the path to ministry.
It is interesting. I was the only Christian in my family then. And over the years, that changed, of course, not only my family, but even the neighbors and childhood friend joined us and really influenced each other, and lives were changed. But most so is even though we were promised, or the guy who had shared that something is good, life still happens. I mean, we went through all the motions, tough times, crazy times. And but one thing was, at this time, at least you could pray. Then when life happened, you did not know who to run to, who to talk to. At this time, there was this introduction of someone higher than everyone else who we could commune. And if I did not have that, I don't know how I would have resolved very many questions.
Thank God that salvation came at the right time. And then you entered the ministry, and ministry took its own journey. Tell us just a summary of what your ministry has been like. We'll want you to come back and tell us about your current ministry, but just give us a bit of a hint of what that has looked like and where you are today.
Immediately, I became born again. I felt a strong urge to reach out to others and serve God. It was not very clear, but I knew it was between teaching and reaching out, and reaching out. And it is part of what forms what I have been doing over us, because I ended up teaching some Bible schools, training workers. So that has happened, and reaching out. I've been reaching out to communities, and part of that is what I've been doing as a chaplain to prison ministry, to the rehabs, to the under-resourced. That still happens. And of course, there was a time I almost quit, because there is what my expectations were and what the reality was. And it was quite a struggle. But I think once called, you are called, brother. I don't know any other way of escape. Even if you give excuses, they are just called. And if you don't do what your calling is, you will never truly be happy.
Thank you, Pastor Fred, for sharing that with us. Sometimes we try to sanitize our stories and our testimonies, but we are humans and we go through all motions. So thank you for sharing, just being candid with us. And by God's grace, you have kept going. What will you say is your prayer request right now? We'd like to pray with you in your current ministry and to invite you back to tell us more about what the ministry is. What are your prayer requests or your hopes moving forward?
For now is praying for my family. They have been the best thing that ever happened. They have been with me through the lows and the highs. And so I would really wish to pray for them. And also for God to give me wisdom, because currently what I'm doing is creating platforms where other people find their calling and facilitate them to be who God meant them to be. So I need a lot of wisdom, because It is really something that requires a lot of grace, patience, and also understanding on different personalities that we have.
Yes. Those are really good prayer items. Your journey has taken you to places where you have worked with individuals at their very difficult moments, like prison and rehab, chaplaincy, and now continuing to train others who are extending their help to those people. So you're not just training from your head knowledge, you're training from your experiential knowledge. You've been right there. We thank God for the list that you have added, and we'll pray with you, and we'll look forward to hearing more about the work that God is doing through your life. So God called this girl from Botella Estate, from the estate, led my life right into the ministry. God called this boy from a life that was challenging. And by God's grace, he sheltered your life and led you to the path of salvation by people sharing the good news of the church. We thank God for that. And thank you for sharing that with us. It's really Ebenezer for both of us.
It is my pleasure. And thank you for this opportunity to share bits and pieces of my life.
Thank you. I'm glad that I had also the privilege of hearing that, and I'm blessed by that. Thank you for joining us. I know it's evening in Kenya, and it's just about time for you to wind down your day and plan for tomorrow. So I pray that you have a good evening, and greetings to your lovely family.
Thank you. I'll do so. You greet your family, and thank you again for us meeting online. And I think this is the best thing that ever happened. Who knew that days would come? This is how people would deal with life. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. God, in his great mercy, called me, a girl, at a time when only boys were credentialed, only men were credentialed to ministry in my denomination. I found myself constantly defending my place in the classroom at our theological school. I was the only girl in the classroom. And there were questions like, you know that you'll not be ordained. They will not ordain women. So why are you here? Or eventually just to prepare to serve as a pastor's wife. I defended my place. I said, God called me. I know and I'm convinced he has a plan. And he knows what my role will be, whether it's just to be a full-time student. Actually, one of my friends in the youth group nicknamed me Pope because she was amused to the fact that a girl was actually headed for a vocation as a clergy at a time when it was very much a male profession. That girl, now a grown woman, doing God's work in the ministry, one assignment at a time. Whoever you are, whatever your circumstances, there is no limit right now to who can serve as clergy in almost every denomination. But your circumstance may be different. What the path that you're in and the ways in which you're seeking to serve God may be ways that are maybe not popular or maybe not even endorsed. Hopefully there can be people who will speak into your life, mentors, who will come alongside, coaches. They will coach you and encourage you. I was grateful to have a very supportive church and church leadership, the pastor, the elders, the board. As initially they were surprised, but once they absorbed that surprise and saw that this is something that I was convinced that was the path I was taking, they rallied around me. They rallied the church around me and made the decision to cover the cost for my theological training. I want to leave you with some of the pictorial journey of my early life, some pictures of early life, what life looked like, and just growing up with siblings. But I also want to encourage you with the words of Robinson in the concluding stanza of his song, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. He wrote, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart. Oh, take and seal it for thy quotes above. A dear prayer, prone to wander in early life. There were so many challenges and so many situations that could nip one's life, that could almost destroy one's dream, thwart one's path, just as a child. But by God's grace, He ensured that did not happen. And thankfully, those situations instilled something in us, served to fortify our choices, our decisions, our desire to live for God and to live a different life, to make different choices, and our resolve to take a different path. Thank you for joining us this morning on this network. On behalf of the Ebenezer team, on behalf of everyone who works together with me to put together the episodes, thank you. I hope that you have a gentle week, that you have opportunities this week to lay your stones of faith, to declare God's goodness, whether it's within your immediate family, within your neighborhood, in your professional context, or in your faith community, that you'll have an opportunity to share your testimony, to share the exceptions in your storied lives, and in the process, declare God's goodness, give God the glory, and map your Ebenezer moments. Recount your stories and raise those stones of help. Till next week, Ebenezer.